Well, today the peaches are ready to be harvested off this forgotten peach tree. But this peach tree is really hungry now that she's given birth to her beautiful babies here. So right now is a great time to also fertilize our tree for the coming fall and winter season. Have any of you ever run a long race of endurance like a 5K marathon? Well, before the marathon for this tree, she was looking real good. But as she got tired and was working really hard, by the end of the race here, she's looking like this. So what we're going to do is take a look at our trees and how they're feeling after a long haul summer season, producing fruit and producing their leaves and branches. We can read the leaves and understand what the tree is lacking, where the tree is having a weakness, what it is really in need of to help produce even better fruit for the next season. Right now is such a good time to read the tree because the tree has been under immense pressure to produce new limbs, new leaves, and a fruit load. And so it's pulling really hard upon the conduits and upon the fertilizers. Now, after we pull the fruit off the tree and the load is lightened, the tree will start recovering and it'll start looking better. If we wait too long, we may not be able to recognize what deficiencies it has. So this is a really unique time when the tree is at its weakest point from all that hard work. Now, both of these trees have already been fertilized back in the late winter and early spring, commonly known as the dormant season. It would be nice to harvest the peaches off first, and then a day or two after, come re-fertilize the trees to carry them through the fall and the winter. We're going to look at two trees here, and they're at different stages. So this tree right here, we just planted it about 3 or 4 months ago. And at the time we planted it, we fertilized it generally, and we mulched it, and get it some basic nitrogen and potassium and phosphate. But now it's showing us a little bit more when it's needing. You can see that in the past, the tree had some big leaves, but they're kind of pale looking. And you can see its new growth right here. The leaves are very skinny, and you see how they're kind of banded together. They're having a hard time opening up into a leaf. You also see that it almost looks like a flower right here. All the leaves are together right there, and they're not spread out on the normal nodules that they would normally be. And it's all over on the new branches. All these ones are doing the same thing. That deficiency right there appears to be a zinc deficiency, what they call a trace element. The trace elements are very strong and they can poison things very easily. And yet the tree needs small amounts of them still to do well. Now that zinc deficiency doesn't surprise me because in our area, historically, as I've been farming for the last 2 decades, had a zinc deficiency in the many different fields I've run. A common one for our area, that's almost a slam dunk that we have a zinc issue. You can always get a soil test done any time during the season. They give you a good general idea of what might be missing. I find that there's nothing better than keeping an eye on it, looking at the tree, examining the leaf growth. Another low element in our area that I've noticed is manganese. And usually that'll cause some yellowing on the leaves, but the veins will remain kind of green. And we don't see that as much on this young tree. Over here on the older tree, you can see that it very much has the yellow leaf with the green veins. But there's another thing going on with this tree. You notice that the leaves are kind of pale. Let me compare one off this other tree, and you can see that it has a darker green. The leaves are generally the same size. So to me, that does not indicate that it has a nitrogen deficiency, but that it actually has a potassium deficiency. So when we planted this tree, we put plenty of nitrogen, phosphate, and potassium down. So why would this have kind of a potassium deficiency? Well, this tree is trying to grow hard and fast, but its roots can't quite keep up right now with the rest of the tree. Its roots are trying to grow too so that it can reach out and get all this nutrition we've been fertilizing it with. But remember, the roots went down into that hole we dug, and so they're working their way out of that still. So we're dealing with two things on this tree. One is a deficiency which we can help correct with our special fertilizer we're going to use today. And two is time. It's going to take some more time and another season for those roots to work their way so that they can get better at picking up a source of the food to help power the top of the tree here. All right, let's take a look at this other tree over here, the big one. It has its own set of problems after a long summer season. Again, the banding of the leaves, the flowering of them, where they call it a rosette, but kind of the leaves are all packed together almost like a flower would come out. The nodes should be spread out like they are here. This tree also has a zinc deficiency, which is no surprise, but this one is also having a manganese deficiency. We showed you that just a minute ago, but we're dealing with something else again. So for example, this scaffold limb here that's coming to the north, the leaves look way worse than over on the east side of the tree where all the peaches were produced nicely, and they just look a lot better over here. Even the new growth looks better over here. This is the scaffold limb that is feeding that beautiful area, and this is the scaffold limb feeding the area that looks really deficient. And you'll notice if you follow this down the tree, it's kind of these stretch marks. We're dealing with some sunburn right here on the trunk. It has died back, but the tree is trying to recover and is doing a good job. We're trying to prune it so we can shade it. With a little bit of the damage on the trunk, the tree is able to feed this area really well, it would appear. It's not able to feed this other area as well. So we'll keep that in mind as we're pruning later in the season as well. Then we're dealing with not only a lack of some of the trace elements, we're also dealing with a circulation issue. The best we can do is keep this tree healthy and let it keep recovering and keep pruning it good. Keep doing all the things that we're doing, and some of those issues will correct themselves in time. One of the ones that we can boost temporarily is to help fertilize those trace elements. Now, a common thing is that people feel that their tree is sick, getting diseased, and the bugs are attacking it. A lot of it comes back to the fertilizer issue. If we can keep the trees well fertilized, really healthy, really robust, it seems to solve a lot of those problems. The diseases start healing themselves. The bugs don't prey upon them as much, like a sick plant. And you think about it like us. If we're well fed, we don't get sick much, and we're very productive, and we're healthy, and we're moving around. But if we're starving to death, it's hard for us to keep up that level of production. We start getting sicknesses and diseases, and all of our weaknesses start showing up. It's the same way with the trees. All right, enough talking, you guys. Let's get to work. We're going to reset the mulch around here and do a little bit of weeding, and we're also going to fertilize with the trace elements. So we have the tree all opened up here now. This is a great time to check for peach borers. If you have any goo oozing out of the bottom of the tree there, see if you have any eating on the tree trunk. So the fertilizer we're going to be using today is called Ironite Plus. It's a little bit different than the Ironite that they sell for the grass in the 15-pound bags. This is just a 3-pound bag, and it's a general fertilizer as far as the nitrogen, the phosphate, and the potassium go. But the cool and unique thing about this one, as opposed to a lot of the other fertilizers you find, is that it has all of the trace elements here. We have sulfur and boron and iron and manganese and zinc. Very low percentages, and that's because they're very strong, so we don't need too much of them. This fertilizer is going to look a little bit different than what you're normally used to seeing. These ones almost look like salt rocks, but that's exactly what they are. They're minerals. For this tree, we need 3 cups around the tree ring. So this bag is essentially going to get you 2 trees fertilized. The last thing we want to do, now that the mulch is all set nicely around the tree, is we're just going to come back here and pull that mulch off the stump itself a little bit. All that action of the fixing of the nitration and the breaking down of the bark is kind of irritating, especially in wetter climates. It can cause fungus and disease to develop. So it seems to be helpful to the tree. So there you have it, guys. We have the tree fertilized and the mulch renewed. We'll come check on these trees in a couple weeks from now and see how they're doing. And we'll do a follow-up video on that. So stay tuned for that. Even though things aren't perfect all the time and we run into problems, keep growing, you guys. And we'll see you on the next one.